How can you believe something you don't know? Well, the word know is slightly ambiguous there. Perhaps it's better, since you've asked about science, to ask the question, how can you believe something you don't understand? You believe so many things you don't understand. Do you understand consciousness? Do you believe in it? I suspect most of you do. Do you believe in gravity? Yes? Nobody understands it. Do you believe in energy? Yes? Nobody understands energy. We believe in masses of things we don't completely understand. I even believe in my wife. I don't completely understand her. We've only been married 50 years, but I still don't completely understand her. You see, the point is this, and it is a very important thing to grasp. I know enough to trust my wife. I don't know everything. I know enough to trust God, but I don't know everything. And the way I get to know my wife is because she talks to me and she reveals herself to me. You see, if she didn't speak and I put her under a microscope or computer tomography or investigated her with sonar or X-rays or gamma rays or beta rays or epsilon rays or any kind of rays, I'd never get to know her. Get to know a lot about her from a point of view of physics, but I wouldn't get to know her. I can only get to know her if she reveals herself. That's the way we get to know people, isn't it? And this is the wonderful thing about the Christian faith. You see, you may have got the impression from what I've said, because we're only starting the week, you know, that it's our search for God, and we're trying to see if there's evidence for God. That's important. But the other side of the story is God's search for me. And here's where Christianity tells us that God is not only searching for me, God has become human to show me what his heart is like and to show me what his attitude is to me. Just like my wife revealing herself. Now, if you decide as an atheist that there's no such thing as revelation, well, you're happy to believe that. But is there any evidence that what you believe is true? Or is there evidence, on the other hand, that Christ has revealed the heart of God? So this is where it becomes specific, because we're persons, we're not just theories. God is not just a theory, folks. God is a person, and we relate to persons on a much more sophisticated level than we will relate to theories. There are theories about God. They're very important. But God is not simply a theory. So the claim is, and that will be explained during the week, how you can get to God. And one of the questions actually reflects this and says, science fails more in explaining things related to human beings than the rest of the universe. Well, of course it does, because you are much more complex than the rest of the universe. And you should have found that out by now. Human beings are very complex. They cannot be reduced to sets of equations. And so sciences like psychology and so on are, by definition, vastly complex. Economics, the movement of trade, the thought of people, literature, this is all hugely complex. And the natural sciences aren't geared to deal with it. They're successful precisely because they can only answer a limited range of questions, mostly questions of how it works. They don't answer the why questions of purpose at all. What scientific evidence exists to prove God's existence? Well, I've been trying to talk about it for an hour, so that person hasn't been listening. But maybe they have, and they haven't quite understood that what I'm claiming is firstly, God's fingerprints are to be seen at different levels in nature. First of all, the sheer impression of glory as you look out on a galaxy at night. And that has impressed many, many people who are not scientists, but it has impressed scientists. The great philosopher Kant says, the starry heavens above me and the moral law within me. Those two things convinced him of God. Kant was not an atheist, by the way, in case you've been taught he was. But then there's the kind of thing that I quoted from Alan Sandage, who's the astronomer, that the only explanation that makes sense is God. And that's one of my main reasons. I look at all the explanations I'm offered. The God explanation makes sense. It makes sense of mathematics because mathematics is a rational discipline. It makes sense of the fact that mathematics can describe the universe out there. And then, of course, I believe that in biology, DNA and its structure, in the nature of its complexity, not its complexity, but the nature of it. Anthony Flew was a world-famous atheist. He was a Richard Dawkins when I was a young person. And he came to believe in God. Why? Because someone told him that DNA is written in a language. And he said, the only explanation I can have for that makes sense is God. So in all of those ways. But that's only the start of the evidence for God. Science doesn't tell us everything, and certainly not about God. It can point towards God. But you've got to bring in history and experience as well. Because you see, Christianity claims to be a historical revelation. It's geared into history. It talks about a person and what he did and where he lived. And it claims that he died and he rose again and he ascended. Now, those are claims that are historical. And we can test them historically, as people will be explaining to you this week.